So that was it. All right, so if you're a young tradesperson, entrepreneur looking to go solo, or aspiring general contractor, entrepreneurs who like the whole build in public type of content, or you're fans of real world hustle stories, we can call it, or just like for some reason you're a sick twisted person, you just like hearing about people making mistakes, we'll get you started, because believe it or not, I have some for you. So a few weeks ago, maybe about a month and a bit ago, I decided to hand in my 2 weeks notice at a job that I was working at. So how it worked and how it was scheduled is I did about 60%, 50% of my income was from my own work, and 40 to 50% of it, depending on how much was work, right, whatever, was this building I worked at where I was an employee. So I had to be there for X amount of hours a week, and there was a lot of issues towards the last little bit, a lot of headaches, or a lot of things that were very unique to the situation that I'm not really going to bore you guys with in terms of semantics. But what ended up happening is I kept getting phone calls to fix a lot of stuff and to deal with stuff that wasn't actually a part of like what I was doing. So I kept getting calls to go help people and deal with these, or jobs to go look at, but I couldn't really help them. So that kind of left me a bit like, oh, I'm letting these people down, and then I'm letting down these people that I'm at. What ended up happening ultimately is I go down south. I took a bit of inspiration from a panel where they said if, people are a lot of the times on the fence and they can't decide whether or not they need to pull trigger, they want to pull trigger, or they've always wanted to start and they just don't know how, and they don't know where to start, or they don't know to begin. Well, I'm going to tell you guys what I did. I handed in my 2 weeks, ended that on a really good note, and I feel pretty good about how that ended. So what happened is a week in advance, when I knew I had 1 week left. So I saved as much as I could during that time, and every chance I get, I went through my phone and I said, who do I know that's in the industry that I want to work with, or I know is like out and about on the beat, they call it, right? So who's out and about on the beat, who's in homes, in buildings, talking to clients, talking to homeowners, talking to property managers, and I want to get in front of them and talk to them and see what I can do. So I go, okay, I'm going to do that. So I messaged a bunch of people that work in the industry that I know, that I've known through, whether it be the podcast or whether it be through other means of just working, right? Working people talk to working people. So a lot of them I knew through different jobs and opportunities, and I decided to reach out to pretty much every single one, whether that be real estate agents, home inspectors, building inspectors, planners, other construction workers or tradespeople, and dive into what I thought would be a good amount of time spent reaching out to them and just kind of telling them what I did. Now, a lot of them responded really positively. They're all very excited because that's a big deal, and they all want to support and help, which I'm super grateful for, and I think a lot of people will be met with that response. Now, the way to do it is what I found, and I learned this from one of my, let's call them construction business mentors, if you will. What ended up happening is he was on the phone with me, and he was like excited for me, but he's also one of the people that'll keep it 100 with me at every single time. And if you don't have somebody like that, find one, because he'll support you, but he'll give you an honest, like, if you really want to do this, I'd be worried if you don't do that. Or if you're having trouble marketing yourself, which is at the time with what I was kind of talking to him about, he threw me an idea. I was like, man, I got to find a way to like sum up and package this thing that's referred to as like, how do I market myself in a package? How do we niche it down? Because everybody can do everything, apparently, right? So if everybody does everything, what makes you different? So talking to him, he helped me realize that the way to package it for me personally, because I don't do so much as like full new ground up builds yet. I don't do a lot of different stuff, but I do flooring, I do windows, I do doors, I do plumbing, I do, I can fix roofs. I can do not so much stone up on the ground, but I can do patchwork on stone. Like I can do drywall. Like there's a lot of different stuff that I could do and that we could do as a group that I felt couldn't be quantified without saying, oh yeah, I do this. I do everything. Okay, well, what does everything look like, right? So we packaged it as a home service company, a home service specialist. are what we are, what I am. So saying, hey, we're home service specialists, or finding a way to package it if you're in a similar position when you're first starting out, that's the best way I think that you could do it. I think it's super easy and the best way to do it. So that was kind of the week going in, right? That was the maybe Thursday, Friday before I started. So I started full time the Monday. Fast forward, I had a good friend of mine help me out because he's in between work, and I was working for this temp job, and I was like, dude, stop doing that. Let's start working together. And he's competent, good on tools. I'm like, you can learn from me, we can help each other out, and I'll pay you, right? It was perfect. So we start going, right? It's going fine. We have a few day jobs, a couple half day jobs, a couple service calls that kind of popped in throughout. So there were 2 day jobs, service calls, half day jobs. So it was blended perfectly. And I was like, this is exactly what I'm hoping for. And I kept going back and quoting at different things. So a lot of the time I ended up being like a week out. So whenever he was like, when can you do this? I'm like, in a week. So I'd build up, and then it became 1 week lead time. And then it became closer to 2. So I'm still working on that first week's lead time of stuff that took place. And then service calls kind of come throughout, right? So within the first week, a bunch of calls came through and a bunch of stuff. So we ended up doing pretty well the first couple weeks. But that first week specifically, we did well enough, I thought. We had thousands of dollars, nothing extreme, but nothing a lot more than I would have made working as an employee. Like a lot more. So I was super grateful for that. The taxman will come around and shag me up, but that's a different, we'll get there when we get there. So anyways, towards the end, end of the week, everything was going smooth, no major issues, and we were rolling. Things I learned because of this. So the big thing, we got a call on the Friday afternoon of the first week working, and it was to do some electrical and to do some plumbing. And what ended up happening is we go to unclog a dishwasher and replace a fixture in a bathroom ceiling. We managed to do that, no problem. However, what I learned is that you should never take or start a new job after 2 on a Friday. Usually during a normal workday, fine. But because you can always finish it up tomorrow morning. But don't start a new job after 2 on a Friday. That's a terrible idea. Because as soon as you do that, you're now committed for that, and then you can leave somebody without water or without hydro, depending on what you're doing, for the weekend if you can't get it wrapped up by the time stores close. So what ended up happening is we had to pop off a supply line in order to pull out a dishwasher. We put the dishwasher back up the supply line where it's going in, not to the dishwasher, but to elsewhere in the supply line for the shutoff on the other side. We saw it was wet, and we're like, what's going on? We turned the water back on, and it started leaking. So we're like, well, this is weird, because they're shark bite fittings. So they're compression fittings. They're not great, terrible. We don't like them. Should never use them, but that's besides the point. So what ended up happening is we replaced the line. We swapped it out. We put it on. Now, the thing is, we shut off above and we shut off next to it. We didn't realize that it went straight down to the main line. So my guy who had working with me cut the PEX line that water was feeding to. But he cut it without shutting off the main water line, which is what we ended up having to do. So he cuts it, and all of a sudden, it starts spitting out water, and then a little bit, and he's like, okay, I'm just going to cut the whole thing. Cuts it, boom, water everywhere inside the cupboard. Terrible. So I hear this. I hear him and the contractor kind of like a rush, or the other guy there, rushing a little bit. So I'm like, what's this, anxious feet tapping on the ground? So I run up, I'm like, oh, this isn't good. Water going everywhere. I'm like, crap. I run down, shut off the main water line, open up a couple sink taps and stuff to make sure nothing goes crazy. Easy enough. No problem. That gets fixed. Now, water shut off. We drain the line, tidy up the water. No big deal. Problem solved. Didn't take long at all. We go connect the supply shutoff valve and connect the supply line. Supply line doesn't fit because it's 1/2 inch and it needs to be 3/8, so it doesn't work. So now it's in the afternoon on a Friday. We have no choice but to finish. And we're like, well, what do we do? Okay. So we're like, okay, well, we're going to have to just close this line and then do it on Monday. And that's what we ultimately ended up doing. I'm grateful that everybody had as much patience as they did and we got through that. But, and comment below, please, if you guys have anything similar that's happened. But everybody, when starting out or when they're actually pretty confident, is when we have mistakes like this. But after a 40-hour week at this point, by Thursday it was a 40-hour week, and then we're now getting into like close to 50, and now we on a Friday where it's been 20 plus degrees all week, and we're working in the sun and we're doing labor stuff, we're going down, up, skill work, we're like running around a bunch, we're moving a lot, exhausted. We cut a line, we're like, we would not have made that mistake in the middle of a Monday. It wouldn't have happened. And we ended up shutting off the valve, cleaning up the mess. His dishwasher was fine, everything was fine, nothing was damaged, thankfully, and we got it cleaned up quick, so I'm not too worried. But what ended up happening is we go back to Monday, we swapped the valve out for the right one, cut it, drained it, turned off the main line, everything went flawless, as it should have, and as it would have gone had we not done it exhausted at the end of the week. So, lesson learned, never take a call or start something new after 2 o'clock on a Friday. It will not work out in your favor. It's best to just cruise or take an early day and like finish around 1 or 2. It's better to do that. And maybe even if you want, just get the parts you need or check out the job and say you'll get the parts and be back on Monday. Something. Because anytime it's like that, and we've like, the guy's done a lot of plumbing, I've done a lot of plumbing, and I trusted to let him do it, cut it, it happens, mistakes happen, I've done worse, I know people have done worse than my worst, so everything's kosher, thankfully, and it's all worked out. But that was one of the things we learned, was don't start a job after the fact on a Friday. Next week, we go through... What even is next week? Fuck. What do we do the second week of work? Fluorine. Next week, we dive into how to manage multiple jobs all at once, especially when you're trying to get one job done and meet one deadline and you keep getting called for a different one. So we're going to get fully invested on that. We're going to dive into that, and hopefully you guys enjoy that. Think to yourself, what would you guys be doing as a, if you just pulled trigger? What would it take for you guys to pull trigger? Would your boss just be a bit more of a dick? Would you make just a little bit less money? What would it take for you guys to quit your job? And what would that kind of bootstrap beginning look like? So please subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know if anybody made any messed up mistakes as well, or if you guys have ever done something terrible on a job site that's caused panic for a little bit, and takeaways or anything you guys have learned from working. I'm sure it would help me and everybody else as well. Or if you have any tips and advice and tricks. But that's my 5 cents. Full weeks ahead. Everything's looking up, everything's looking good, and we're doing it, man. So if you're looking for a little bit of a push, this might be it. If you are an employee and you just want a little bit more of a nudge, this is it. If you aren't making as much money, or you're not quite sure about if you should pull trigger or not, be smart, don't burn bridges, and always make sure to network properly and offer value. Find a way to niche yourself, find a way to stand out, find a way to make you different, and as soon as you can do that, then people will think about you first. And if you reach out and you offer some form of incentive or anything else to help people with leads, or you do certain discounts for certain people or reoccurring, however you choose to work it out with whatever works for your budget and your industry or whatever you've seen work in the past, find a way to do that. And always, always, always lead with helping people and doing right by people first. If you do right by people and you want to help people, no matter what, things do work out in your favor. Just keep pushing forward, and whatever you need to get off that ledge, not doing anything is worse than doing the wrong thing. Because it is the wrong thing. I know that probably made no sense, but I'm hoping somebody could take something away from this 15-minute conversation we just had. So, subscribe, comment, and like. I'll see you later. Thank you.